On today's episode of the DuckZone503 Podcast, we're going to be recapping the Week 4 matchup of number 19 Colorado versus number 10 Oregon. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Let's get into it, people.
Welcome to the DuckZone503 Podcast, talking all things Oregon football, with your host, Dominiqk Peterson. Let's go.
Welcome into today's edition of the DuckZone503 Podcast. The date is Monday, September 25th, 2023, and I am happy to be with you, people. Boom! Just like that. How do you like that, Colorado? You just ran into a real football team. That Deion Sanders hype train just derailed in Eugene, people. Big time win at home. Ducks control the game from start to finish and win 42-6. That quote-unquote old-fashioned butt whooping, as Colorado head coach Deion Sanders put it in the press conference after the game, happened in front of 59,889 fans in a roaring Autzen Stadium. That is Oregon's 6th largest attendance ever. I was there, people. You guys know what's up. Come on now. I was there in Eugene, Oregon, in Autzen, vlogging it all. The full vlog is out now on my channel. Make sure you guys go check that out. From the beginning of the trip to the tailgate to the game, I give you the full game day experience in Autzen Stadium. I absolutely love connecting with people and, that watch the show. Met a lot of you guys last night. If you ever see me, if you want to meet me, feel free to say what's up, say hi. Please don't feel shy. I love meeting everyone and talking some football. I really enjoyed meeting all the players after the field as well. Seeing them, going onto the field, connecting with them, saying good game is always great. The vlog is always good. I went with my best friend here. This guy right here is my boy Eddie. Friend since I was 8 years old, guys. Everybody has, that best friend for life. That guy right there is my guy, man. Eddie, shout out Eddie, getting him to his duck game. First duck game since 2019 that he's been to. And what a game to go to, man. It was a great day. There on the field, 42-6 final score. Gotta love that. And here's my boy Terrence Ferguson. T-Ferg, man. He's been big for the Ducks this year. Absolute beast on the field. And then here, guys, Bodacious. If you guys want to get a pick with that's in the stadium. I think it's near like section 17. So if you know where that's at around the stadium, get a pick with the Bodacious sign, man. The Bodacious Heisman, and he sure played like a Heisman contender, no doubt. So guys, if you enjoy Oregon football content and podcasts just like this, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. We're sitting there, I think, at 853 subscribers. The goal is 1,000 this season. I want to get to 1,000 before season's end. I know we can get there. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to rate that Spotify podcast 5 stars for me if you haven't already. All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about this. This game obviously had a lot of hype and media coverage coming in. This was a major opportunity for the Ducks to go out there in front of the college football world and show what they're all about. Colorado, we all seen it. They got in Friday, and one of their players decided to disrespectfully drag his cleat into the Oregon logo on midfield. And let me tell you, that was not taken lightly by the fans of the team. I posted the video on my social media. If you're not following, go follow right now at DuckZone503 on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. But look, guys, when I posted that photo, everybody's seen it, including Brandon Dorless. He liked that post in the morning when I posted it up. And after that, I was like, yeah, Brandon Dorless and that defensive line, they're going to be ready for this one. I mean, how could you not be ready for this matchup when you got Dan Lanning coming at you like this before the game, guys? Let's take a look. Dan Lanning was certainly not playing around. Everybody's seen that Dan Lanning speech. If you haven't seen it already for whatever reason, we got to take a look at this. I mean, you want to talk about running through a wall for somebody who's your coach? This is Dan Lanning pregame before Colorado kickoff. I mean, just absolutely want to run through a wall for this guy.
With our pads.
Let me replay it for you guys.
Not flash, rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. There's a difference. Right? There's a difference. Right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass.
On the
right?
grass.
It's going to be played on the grass.
Right.
And let's go.
Let's go, man. He said, the Cinderella story is over. I mean, wow. Dan Lanning. The Cinderella story is over, man. They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. I absolutely love it. And you already know Dan Lanning had that ready for the cameras. This Colorado hype train has just got off the rails. And I get it. Look, Deion, superstar figure. As the head coach, he's doing well. The hype this team has, I got to compare it to almost USC level here. As much hype as USC gets. Dan Lanning, okay, he certainly isn't one for clicks. He certainly isn't one to speak his mind like that. But in this matchup, he certainly did. I love this form of Dan Lanning right here. Fired up, motivational as ever. Absolutely love it, man. I absolutely love it. All right, let's do a quick game recap here. Let's talk about this Oregon defense for a second. Second week in a row, an absolutely just dominant performance from the defense. You want to know something funny, guys? So look, Colorado, we all know they won just one game last season. They just won one. When the Ducks played Colorado last year, the Buffaloes scored 10 total points. In this matchup this year, even with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback, the Ducks hold this Colorado offense to just 6 points. Buffaloes finished with under 200 yards of offense. They held Shedeur Sanders to under 200 yards passing. If you would have told me that this Ducks defense was going to hold Shedeur Sanders to under 200 yards passing, I would have called you guys crazy. 7 sacks on the day. Again, I've been saying it all season. The new additions on this defense, especially that front seven, have been so much of an upgrade from last year. Jordan Burch finished with 2 sacks this game. You want to talk about coming through when you're needed most? Let's go Jordan Burch, the former 5-star prospect coming out of South Carolina from the transfer portal. Absolutely love him being a game wrecker in this game. Keep it up, Jordan Burch. Evan Williams, he had 1.5 sacks. Casey Rogers had the other half of that sack that he had the one half of. Jamal Hill, Brandon Dorlus, and Tatum Toyote all get a sack each as well. Guys, the defense was the big question coming in. I'm ready to say it. The defense is for real. Look, against Portland State and Hawaii, the defense absolutely shut them down, and that's what to be expected. The Texas Tech offense certainly moved the ball fairly well against the Ducks, but penalties were a big help for them in that game. I thought this was the first real big test for this defense this year to see just how good they were. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders was statistically top 3 in every passing category you can be in if you're a quarterback coming into this game. The Buffalo's offense, they were averaging close to over 500 yards of offense in a game coming in. In my prediction, I had Colorado scoring 31. I thought this game where the offense would be able to move the ball on Oregon, but not stop Oregon's offense. I thought that's how the game would kind of go. Well, the defense certainly showed the improvements from last year and flexed their muscle. I absolutely love that the defense is looking really good this year. The defense just looks a lot faster and athletic than last year's defense. They're definitely more talented and deeper at positions they needed to get better at. On the edge, the Ducks have Jordan Burch. We already mentioned his name. True freshman Mateo Ugiagale. True freshman Tatum Toyote got a sack today. True freshman Blake Purchase looked really good. Mace Funa's still making plays. On the interior, you got Brandon Dorlus. He's probably your best defensive player on the team. Casey Rogers is a veteran experienced player up front. Shout out to him for that fake punt, by the way. We'll talk about that fake punt play, and it was absolutely insane. I mean, on your 17-yard line, own 17-yard line, Dan Lanning, he's known for going for it and making some risky plays. We've seen it last year work out sometimes. We've seen it not work out. This is one of those cases where you roll the dice and you got it. And it was a beautiful play, man. Casey Rogers looked really fast as a defensive lineman. Shout out Casey Rogers. And you can't forget Popo Amave, man. Absolute beast up front, coming back from injury from last year. The Ducks did not have him last year. Absolutely love what he's doing this year. He looks really good coming off of his injury. The Ducks up front, just as a total, have been by far the biggest upgrade. They're so deep and talented. More importantly, they're young. They're young. We have heard Dan Lanning say it in press conferences. If you're good enough, you're old enough when it comes time to play. Last year, true freshmen really didn't play at all. We didn't see a lot of true freshmen play. Besides, we've seen Jordan James, Josh Connerly getting there during goal line situations. This year, there are a load of true freshmen out there, and they're obviously out there for a reason because Tatum Toyota, Matuyo Ogiagale, Blake Purchase, hell, even Devin Jackson, who isn't a true freshman, but a true sophomore, Jaleel Florence, true sophomore, all are making dominant impacts for this defense. So when Dan Lanning says, quote unquote, if you're good enough, you're old enough, he's a man of his word, guys. Kyrie Jackson, let's talk about him. Probably the MVP of this game. I mean, the Alabama transfer really came in and played near perfect. He's 6'4", really long and rangy athletic quarter on the field for the Ducks. He's excellent at staying with the receiver and locating the ball for a knockaway or an interception. He did that so many times in one-on-one situations. Get his head around and knock it away in that last second. That's just textbook if you're a corner. A lot of credit goes to cornerback Demetrius Martin, for great development of his corners. You guys seen it? He sent Christian Gonzalez to the first round last year, and he's out there balling for the Patriots, graded as one of the best rookies in the NFL, according to PFFF. I said that 3 times, one too many times. PFFF, Pro Football Focus, for those folks who don't know. This is game 3, where Jaleel Florence has started and played a lot of snaps now. He looks to be your corner 2 on the other side of Kyrie Jackson. Florence, the true sophomore, has been very impressive. Although not a lot of passes really thrown his way, that's for a reason, though. They're just not open when Jaleel Florence is right there. 4-star prospect out of high school, has elite speed, and is a great cover corner so far for the Ducks. I mentioned this on my previous podcast, but I got to say it again. The tackling for the defense is just night and day compared to last season. Not many missed tackles, if at all, for the Ducks Saturday afternoon. While for the Buffaloes, you look at their defense, a lot of missed tackles for them. Not a very good defense for the Buffaloes. Look, I said this in the beginning in August when we were in preview season. Whoever has the biggest jump defensively this season in the Pac-12 will be your college football playoff representative for the conference this year. We all know the conference was going to have some electric offenses with the quarterbacks leading the way. So the biggest questions for teams like Oregon, USC, Washington was, whose defense is going to upgrade the fastest? Look, I get it. I'm a Duck fan. But even if I had a neutral take on this, and I'm being serious, I wouldn't, I would still put my money on Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoi to build a great defense faster than any other coaching staff in the Pac-12. I just would. I mean, Dan Lanning, he helped build and coordinated arguably the best college football defense of all time. That 2021 Georgia Bulldog national championship defense was insane. Speaking of national championship defenses, our defensive coordinator, Tosh Lupoi, won 2 of them as a defensive coordinator at Alabama. Each one of those defenses allowed just 13 and 11 points per game. They certainly got to work. They certainly got to work in the transfer portal, and we've seen the impacts all over the field for this Ducks defense. Jordan Birch, Kyrie Jackson, Evan Williams are all legit transfers on this defense that are just balling out. Another name to mention, Justin Jacobs, inside linebacker from Iowa, has yet to even play a game for the Ducks, and he was expected to actually play a lot for the Ducks coming in. So when we get him back, Justin Jacobs, that's going to be even bigger news for the Ducks as well. Overall, guys, super impressed with this defense. I got to tell you, I think they are for real. I'm ready to call it out. I think this Ducks defense is for real. I think they're legit. Coming in, I was hoping for a top 50 defense for the Ducks. Right now, they're sitting at number 11 in the country for total defense, guys. They're giving up only 264 yards per game. Compare that to last year where they gave up an average of 381 yards per game. Right now, they're only allowing 158.8 passing yards per game. That's number 9 in the country, top 10 in the country in pass defense. Compare that to last year's defense, where it was giving up 256 passing yards per game. Obvious turnaround for this defense. Obvious that this defense has improved. Now, there's still a lot of games left. A lot of really, really good opponents left on the schedule. But so far, Oregon has handled their biggest test with flying colors. Duck fans and I are loving what we're seeing from the defense, but you know what else I got love for, guys? You already know. I love winning money while watching sports. I'm in love with Mojo Fantasy, guys. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests. Here's how it works, guys. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act as stocks. They act just like stocks, so you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts. So you're not stuck with a bad pick. You can cash out on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. Cash contests are based on real sportsbook odds. Get the same live player prop selection, odds, and cash outs as Mojo's New Jersey Sportsbook. You can trade sports like stocks. You control the action, ride your picks, cash out, or enter new positions instantly, and there's no house advantage. You beat the crowd by building the biggest portfolio to climb the leaderboard and win cash prizes. That's it, guys. Make picks, make moves, make money. Download now on the Apple App Store and use my code DuckZone for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first time deposit. Link in the description for more. Okay, guys, let's get to this offense. Again, just another day for Bo Nixon's Oregon offense. The Ducks finished with 522 total yards of offense, 30 first downs, 282 passing yards. We will recap my 3 keys to the game in a second, but like I predicted, Oregon ran wild on the ground. 38 carries, 240 rushing yards, 6.3 yards per carry, 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Simply put, a dominant performance for the Ducks offensively. All right, guys, you know how much I hate to praise myself on this show, but it's almost like I know what the hell I'm talking about a little bit around here. Let's roll the tape for some people that are new to this show and look at what I said just 72 hours before kickoff. I think that Oregon just has too much depth across the board on both sides of the ball for Colorado to hang in all 4 quarters with the Ducks at home. Bo Nix, he's a Heisman contender and has, 4 legit wide receivers to throw to. Troy Franklin, leading wide receiver on the team. Tej Johnson, 1,000-yard receiver last season at Troy. He's been a huge asset for this team. Gary Bryant Jr., former USC Trojan, put up 107 yards in week 1. He could definitely ball out. And Trayshawn Holden, Alabama transfer. He had 2 touchdowns last week against Hawaii. I have a good feeling that the offensive line will be able to control the tempo of this game and that the depth up front will be the major factor in this game, especially since Colorado, let me remind you, is coming off a long, emotional double overtime win from their in-state rival. You guys know, I hate to praise myself, but, I might know a little one or two things when I speak on this show. Who would have thought, right? Oregon did exactly what I thought they would do to this Colorado defense. I mean, it was visually evident that the Oregon defensive and offensive lines were just much bigger and stronger than the Colorado defensive and offensive lines. The Ducks ran the ball down Colorado's throat. Bo Nix was automatic, another bodacious performance for him. 28 of 33 passing, 276 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Only negative for him on the day, he did throw his first interception of the season. So we do know that Bo is human, and he's not just some alien sent down from the football heavens. So there's that, guys. He can make mistakes. He's not an alien from the football heavens. Bo Nix is actually human. It happens. Okay, first one of the season, big whoop. Troy Franklin is looking like a first-round draft pick, and I think that he will be. On the day, he had 8 catches, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dominating performance from Troy there. Now, if we're going to talk about some negative things that the Ducks can get better at, it's penalties, okay? The good news is that they are getting a little bit better at not committing penalties in the second half, but in that first half, it was a little ugly. They had 9 penalties on the day for 80 yards. That is still not good enough. I do not like that. When we have to go play up in Seattle in a couple weeks against a really, really good Washington team, penalties will kill you in any game, but especially in a hostile environment. It's deeply important that the Ducks don't commit penalties as often as they are. At some point in the season, those penalties will cost you a game if they don't clean it up. I'm telling you guys now, if they commit penalties the way they are so far, they have all season, they will lose and drop a game to a good team. Okay, in a hotly contested, they almost did it against Texas Tech on the road. Pac-12 is really good this year. You're gonna have to clean it up. Championship level teams did not commit double-digit penalties a game. They just don't do that. That's not what championship teams level do. And the reason championship level teams don't do that is because penalties kill you. They absolutely will allow you to drop games that you're supposed to win. You can be more talented than the other team, but if you beat yourself, you will lose. Another piece of dreadful news is running back Noah Whittington was carted off the field and appeared to not be able to put any pressure on his left leg at all. He needed complete assistance getting over that sideline on the medical tent. He ran the ball off the guard and got tackled. Didn't look like anything really bad happened. He just ended up getting hurt. Dan Lanning doesn't talk about injuries at all to the media, but he did address this one in some fashion of the game. He said this after the game. He says, quote, "I don't normally talk about injuries. I don't normally talk about injuries, but there's a good," what does that say? "I still think there's a lot to be decided here." Okay. "I don't normally talk about injuries, but I still think there's a lot to be decided here, but I think Noah's going to be down for a bit. I need everyone to say prayers for him. He's healthy. He's okay, but he's probably going to be down for a bit. I need everyone to have Noah in your prayers we are really proud and fortunate to have. There are bright days ahead for Noah. I just don't know if we will have him in the next few weeks." Now, that quote is kind of all over the place. Dan is saying he's healthy and okay. At the same time, he probably won't be playing in the next few weeks. So it's really hard to know exactly what's going on with the injury. It appears to be kind of a left, maybe lower leg, maybe an ankle injury for Noah Whittington. I wouldn't expect him to play against Washington in the next couple weeks here. It's a pretty big game. Wouldn't expect him to play in that one or even for a little while here. It's time for a next man up attitude. Prayers will certainly be with Noah Whittington. It's good news for the Ducks, though, is that the running back room is one of the deepest positions on the team. Jordan James looks to be more than ready for the responsibility that Noah had as running back 2 to Bucky Irving. And Jaden Lamar and Dante Dowell are both very talented 4-star running backs that can step up if needed, right? Let's go ahead and recap my 3 keys of the game that I had. I had number 1, rush for 250-plus yards. The Ducks, I think they just hit right there at 240 yards. I'll give them a check mark on that one. Certainly ran the ball down Colorado's throat. Number 1, that was the biggest thing in the game. The offensive line did their thing. Another big thing in the game, number 2, was get pressure on Shedeur Sanders, 4+ sacks. Oregon finished on the day, 7 sacks in this game. Look, the Ducks had just a total of 18 sacks total last year. That was like a season low going all the way back to 1982. So that was a big talking point for me on this podcast is how well does the defensive front get pressure on these quarterbacks? Because they're going to be going against a lot of them. And Shedeur Sanders was one of those elite tests that you had to get over the hurdle for this defense. And A+, man, 7+ sacks. I mean, we all knew the Colorado offensive line was one of the worst in the country. They gave up 16 sacks 16 sacks on the season. That was one of the worst in the country for offensive line numbers go. And this Ducks defense definitely exposed that. Now, are they going to be able to do it against like offensive lines like Washington and USC? That's when they're going to need it the most. We're going to have to see it, but they certainly did and definitely did impressive things. Impress me on Saturday with getting pressure. Number 2, definitely a check mark there. Number 3, don't beat yourself. Low turnovers / penalties. Now, the penalties, 9 penalties for 80 yards. You didn't pass there. Now, on turnovers, you only had 1. Bo Nix's first interception on the day. That was kind of a bad throw. It was a tough throw to make, and it got intercepted. But at that point in the game, the Ducks were up big, and the game was kind of settled in. Look, at number 3, I'm not gonna give it a pass there just because of the penalties. I still want to see penalties get cleaned up. But although 1 out of 2 for me get checked off, Ducks win big. What do you know? Final thoughts on this game. Now, look, guys. I'm not one to get overhyped and start spouting playoff. But look, when you just look at the landscape of college football right now, if you really look at it, there's not one dominant team in the country. There's like a whole bunch of great teams, a pack of good teams. Then you got the rest of the top 25, right? And I think Oregon is in that pack of great teams where they can make a playoff run. You could really sit there with any fan base in the top 5 or top 10 in the country right now and just have a real debate on who would be who. It's just been legit that wild of a season. I absolutely love it. I'm here for it. I'm going to be careful by saying this, but I really do, guys. I really do think that the Oregon Ducks in 2023 are college football playoff contenders. Look, they have a dark horse Heisman contender in Bo Nix, who's absolutely been phenomenal so far. They have one of the best offensive lines in college football. They have a plethora of skill position players. But most importantly, guys, you know what else they have? A defense. Now, I know what some of you haters are saying right now. Well, they've only played 4 games. Well, against Hawaii and Braden Shager, that offense came as the nation's #1 passing attack. Not Caleb Williams, not Michael Penix. No, Braden Shager in Hawaii was. And you know what that Oregon defense did? They held them under 150 passing yards total and shut them down to just 10 points. Well, it's Hawaii. Who cares? Who cares if it's Hawaii? What do you want the defense to do? Give up only 100 yards and then you'll be happy? I mean, a good performance is a good performance no matter who you play. So, coming in next week, Colorado, Shedeur Sanders and this Colorado team, one of the hottest teams on the planet, most talked about teams on the planet. Their offense can't be stopped. What does this Oregon defense do? They hold Shedeur Sanders to 200 yards, under 200 yards passing, and hold Colorado to only 6 points. I said it in August, guys, and I'll say it the whole season. Oregon, USC, Washington, they're all favorites to win the conference this year. I said, whoever makes the biggest jump on defense coming into this season will win the conference. Well, out of those 3 so far, Oregon looks to be that team with the best defense. The Pac-12 looks really, really, really deep this year. This might be a hot take, but I think the Pac-12 might even get 2 teams into the college football playoff this year with how good the conference is and how much respect it's getting. We all know if you win your conference, then you got a good shot at going to the playoff. The real test will be coming in a few weeks against Washington, but for now, we'll have to look ahead for Stanford coming up this week. Guys, I really appreciate everybody for tuning into the podcast. If you want to support the podcast, if you really want to support it, this is an independent podcast, not backed by any media group. This is a fan-based podcast. I'm not an expert on anything. I don't claim to be an expert or a journalist on anything. I'm just a big Duck fan, and I love being a Duck fan. It's a fan-based podcast for the fan. If you want to support it, here's your way to do it right here. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Dominiqk Peterson, host of the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Very excited to announce we just launched our very first merch store. Men's and women's t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, and cups are all sold at DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. If you want to go grab one of those today, that's DuckZone503.creator-spring.com. Store link will be in the description below as well. Oh, yeah, you guys know what to do. Store link is in the description below. Also, for Mojo Fantasy, use my code DuckZone. Link in the description for that as well. Appreciate everybody who does that for me. All right, guys, let's go ahead and recap some Pac-12 games for week 4. So we started out here, Arizona, Stanford. We play Stanford next week. I always like to look at our next opponent, who they played. They played Arizona. I picked Arizona to win. Arizona did win. By the way, guys, I went 6-0 this week on picking these games. Bam. I love it. So Arizona, I thought they would win big here. Honestly, I thought Stanford, they're the youngest team in the conference, least experienced team in the conference. They're going against Jaden DeLora, pretty damn good offense. And they get held at only 21 points. The Stanford defense did better than I thought. Stanford, they were right there, but they lost 21-20. This was a big game. Number 14, Oregon State at number 21, Washington State. I predicted this one correctly as well. Washington State wins the game 38-35 over the Beavs at home. Pullman is a tough place to play. Washington State looks for real. That's their second top 25 win on the season so far. Number 11, Utah at home against number 22, UCLA, traveling on the road. Utah gets the win 14-7 in a tough defensive battle. Both these teams right here are right there with Oregon on top teams. defensively in the conference. Now, certainly this was a pretty boring matchup if you like offense, but defense, which definitely showed out. Which defense showed out more? Utah was able to just pull it away. Another close victory for Utah there. Oregon at Colorado, we just recapped it. Oregon gets the big win, 42-6 over the Buffaloes at home. Washington, Cal. Washington was at home. This was a night game. Washington looks to be one of the most dangerous teams in the country. I hate to say it, but the Ducks are in for a real test here in a couple weeks when they go to Seattle. Washington beat Cal 59-32 there. And then a late night game here, Pac-12 after dark type game. USC and Arizona State. USC pulled this game out. They won 42-28, only by 14 points. Arizona State looked to be one of the worst teams in the country. With my pick here, I made this pick in 5 seconds. And this was a game throughout 3 quarters. I mean, Arizona State had this thing at 24-21 at one point before USC was kind of just able to pull away with their talent. But USC, man, does not look like a top 5 country. When I talk about the hype in the media, we just seen it with Colorado. USC always gets this treatment every year because they're Southern Cal, Los Angeles market. They want to cater to that. I get it, but they just did not perform as a top 5 team. I was hoping with this AP poll they dropped down, and they did. Washington is now ranked ahead of them, which I think is well-deserved. I think Oregon's right there with Washington. I think USC is just a little below Washington and Oregon in my head as tier. And, man, what a week. And I hate to toot my own horn here, but, I like to predict who's going to win each Pac-12 games. 6-0, guys. I'm going 6-0. Check it out. Washington State's at home here. It's at 4 p.m. That place can get absolutely insane. We know Pullman and their fans. They pack the place. Give me Washington State. I'll take Washington State over our little brother, Oregon State. Killer game, but they escape. Utah's at home here. They're really good at home. I'm going to go ahead and take Utah on this one. Take Washington at home at night. This Washington team is explosive. It's dangerous. It scares me because Oregon has to go play them in about a couple weeks here. Man, I think Washington will win this one. I just think they got too much on offense. I think it's going to be tough for Stanford to handle them. I got Arizona. Traveling to the desert, I'm just going to go ahead and say USC. Arizona State just did not look good. There you guys have it. 6-0 for my Pac-12 picks this last Wednesday. And it feels good, man. It feels good to come out here and spout correctly what I think is going to happen. And exactly everything happened like I did. If you guys want to keep tuning in, keep tuning in. I appreciate everybody that does. I'm your host, Dominiqk Peterson. This is the DuckZone503 Podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football plus Pac-12. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button down below. As always, guys, go Ducks. We're going to do our preview and prediction episode on Wednesday. We're gonna go play Stanford at the Farm. Oof, scary game, guys. We all know, as Duck fans, okay, I get what you're saying. Scary game. What are you talking about, Dominic? Look, the Ducks in 2021, what did they do? They came off a big-time win. They beat Ohio State on the road. We were at the top of the world as Duck fans. Beat number 3 Ohio State on the road. A couple weeks later, what do? We go to the Farm. A Stanford team, I think they won 3 games that year. And Stanford beats us. In a year where we had Marcus Mariota and one of the best Oregon teams of all time, in my opinion. A year where we could have went to the national championship and play Notre Dame and win and blow them out instead of Alabama winning it. We just would have one DeAnthony Thomas block away in that Stanford game. Stanford always gets us, man. So we don't want this to be the week where you're coming off a big top 25 win and then you let it down against Stanford. That would be a classic. We're not going to see Stanford anymore. We all know this. They're going to I think they're going to the ACC now. I'm not sure. The Big 12 or the ACC. All I know, they're not coming to the Big 10. So this is going to be the last matchup for a while against Oregon versus Stanford. And what a coincidence it would be if they go out of the Pac-12 beating the Ducks, one of the better Duck teams in recent history, right? So we need to handle business against Stanford. I'm going to have the preview and prediction episode on Wednesday for you guys. I'm hoping to have my man Kevin Borba, who covers the team. He also covered the Buffaloes. He was there on last Wednesday's episode. Hoping to have him here on the podcast to preview and predict Stanford, Oregon. That's going to be a fun one. Before the bye week and then Washington. Looking ahead. All right, guys. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Rate the podcast 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify. Go Ducks. See you guys on Wednesday.